Okay, so in this episode, I'm going to be talking to a former student who learned a lot about leadership and then went and applied it as a football coach. And we're going to hear about how he's processing his philosophies, all that in this episode. Stay tuned.
You are listening to The Leadersmith, Darren Gerdes.
Okay, so in this episode, I am here with Mike DeTerlizzi. Mike was a student at Charleston Southern University. What years were you at CSU?
I was there as an undergraduate from 2009 to 2013, and then
Right.
as soon as I graduated, I started my MBA that summer. So summer 2013, I started my MBA, and then finished it at the end of 2014. So December of 2014.
And so we had a number of classes together. And so we've just kept up over the years after you've graduated and talked about leadership ishy kinds of things. And you went to where to coach? Like you were coaching here for a little while at CSU as a like special teams, was it, or something like a
So as soon as I finished with my undergrad, I a new coach was coming in. The coach that I played for retired, and Coach Chavo came in and took over the program in 2013. And then at that point in time, as I was beginning my master's, we kind of created a position. It had really at that point in time hadn't really been done. So I was kind of a pioneer, if you will, in this role, in that I was going to be a graduate assistant coach, and so I was going to be working with the football team, doing various roles there, helping out in the background, and then also pursuing my MBA. And so that was my role there, full time student, but also full time with the football program, getting the
what
basics.
did you coach particularly as the graduate assistant?
Sure. So in the 2013 season, I was on the offensive side of the ball, assisting with special teams, assisting with all phases of the program, equipment, laundry, painting the fields, all the stuff that went on behind the scenes. In the 2014 season, I was working with the defense. So I got, and again, still with special teams. So I was able to get a great deal of experience there on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, and then you got more experience because you went away to Missouri. What was it?
Mississippi, yeah. So it's when I finished my master's in December, I knew that I wanted to get into to college coaching full time. So I started, getting in and trying to network and using the resources that I built to that point, and ended up coming across an opportunity to join staff in Mississippi at Millsaps College, their Division III program. But it allowed me to get great experience,
Sure.
in,
And that's
um, you
exactly
know,
what I tell students to do. Don't worry about how much money you're paid or how prestigious or what. Get the experience because the
absolutely.
experience will. It's like a slingshot. You pull back on the sling. The further you can pull back before you launch, the better. Right.
Right.
So I applaud you for that. That was good. And then you came back for, was it Millsaps and then back to CSU and then.
So when there was the transition from the staff, Coach Chavo left and went to Coastal Carolina. Coach Tucker got the head job at Charleston Southern. With that, and some people leaving and taking some different opportunities, I created a position where I was able to come back as a full time assistant and have that full time position, at Charleston Southern, which was a great opportunity. Anytime you get a opportunity to work
Sure.
with your alma mater, it's
I-
just like, let's go.
yeah. And
Um,
now you are where?
so now I'm coaching high school in Houston, Texas.
Okay.
So yeah, so there was
Next
again,
their football.
yeah, the roller coaster of the ride of this profession. It sometimes it happens like that, but if I have time to share about that, it's kind of it was a good different transition going from college to high school, but for me, I thought it was the best. So
Yeah. So okay. So along the way, as I said, we've kept in touch over time. And I said, so when are you going to? I don't remember even how we got talking. We were somewhere on LinkedIn talking about something, and I said, so when are you going to come on the podcast? And you're like, oh, I don't know. No, seriously, because I know that you have developed thought over time as you have been, working your trade. Now, the interesting thing is how parallel leadership is to everything. Leadership works in one context, it works in another, it works in another. And so, as a football coach, you have developed certain concepts that I said, just put them down on paper, think through them, and let's talk about them. So, your first one you said was the dollar principle. You won't throw away a wrinkly dollar because of its look. So, iron it, and it's good as new. Okay, tell me about that.
Yeah, so it's actually almost I don't know. You see these memes on social media and Twitter, and I don't know who the gentleman is on the picture of, but or it's a quote, but it's kind of something I've formulated here over the last 2 years, especially at this level, at the high school level. Kids are still in a very high developmental phase, right? They're still coming to their into their own of who they are and their identity, and that comes with a lot of immaturity. And so you see a great deal of growth between ages 15 to 18, right? I mean, you have many kids of your own, and so that process is ongoing. But what a lot of times, especially in our profession, we a kid will make a mistake, and we have to act. We have to make sure that they are disciplined, and there's consequences that they're fulfilled. And sometimes we're quick to just let that kid go, maybe kick him out of the program. And so there's a big belief in second chances, and sometimes those second chances, it really will be the difference of a kid making it or not doing anything with his life. And so the whole principle is that we're not in the trash business, right? That we didn't get into this business and this profession to trash kids, right? We're there to develop them, to inspire, to motivate, to develop and continue to work with them day in and day out so that they can make something of their lives. And so a dollar bill is still worth a dollar, whether it's wrinkly or it's crisp and it just came from the treasury. And
Yeah.
so the principle is, hey, a wrinkly dollar, you're not going to throw that away. If a kid is maybe immature or doing stuff and he's not acting right, and so that's on us to get him right and give him the opportunity to continue to iron it day in and day out, and let's get him back on the path, and hopefully he can make something of himself.
Sure, and we all made mistakes, and we've all done stupid things, especially in our teens.
Sure.
Now, there's a range of stupid things, and I'm just glad that I was born before the internet could document all the stupid
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
Right?
It's a
Um,
different whole different world, and everything's recorded, everything's filmed,
yeah,
and I think information travels even faster.
yeah. So, but the basic presupposition or basic assumption that look, we're here to develop is a very different thing than sorry, you're out. And I think that'll pay big dividends down the line for you as you help people grow and as they know that you're in their corner. I've said this many times. I don't know if I had developed this when you were still in school, but I say it very often now. If you have my back, you get my heart, right?
Mm.
It's probably the sentiment that you've heard, even if I hadn't said it in that way. But that's right. If you demonstrate that you have my back, you get my heart. I'm going to go through a wall for you,
Sure.
but you have to demonstrate that first
Right.
before you're going to get that.
Yeah.
Okay, the second one you were talking about the process of hiring good people, and you've been in a number of programs now, so you've been around long enough to have observed a lot about how the hiring process goes. So tell me about that.
Yeah. So again, it's not something I haven't done specifically where I've been in a position to hire. However, I know that it is a very difficult process to find good people, right? And so what I've recognized here is in order to be able to get a great staff, a great chemistry, there's that every hire matters, and so you really have to do your homework. And I was talking to a friend a couple of days ago on the phone, another coach, and he's still working in the college ranks, and it's a very unique profession in that coaches really only want to hire people that they know, or they're going to hire people that they someone they know and trust is going to say, "Hey, you need to hire this guy," right? And so it's very rarely will you get an opportunity to showcase your abilities, get an interview, whatnot. You might have the best resume on paper in the world, but if you don't have the right connections in somewhere, or know the right people, or if they don't know you, it's really hard. So, but at the end of the day, you have to bring in good guys, good people, that have the right intentions to be able to develop your kids, inspire your kids, motivate your kids to perform at a high level. Because you can have great kids, great talent, and be, they're outstanding players, but if you can't get them to play for you,
Yeah.
you won't have success.
Yeah.
So
So if I understand the game right, leadership, not leadership, football is about leadership in the sense that it's about synergy, right? You can have, all 10, everybody can be a 10 player, but if you can't get the synergy of the team working together and operating as a unit, you're, it doesn't matter if they're all tens,
right,
because a team of sevens can wipe you
right.
if they're all playing as a unit. Is that fair?
Absolutely, and it's there's so many different units on that comprise a football team. It's really a very unique situation because you have offense, you have defense, you have special teams, and then you have the entire team. And then within the offense and defense and special teams, you have different units in itself. So it's really just kind of this massive structure of units having to work together, know their role, know their assignment, and then just go out there and execute their job.
Yeah.
But the biggest point about what I saw when I was kind of making these notes is that it always comes back to people, right? You need to hire good people that can do their job and are responsible and have the right intent about putting kids first and investing back in the kids. And then the kids that you do have, it's all about them, right? And so it's the difference in the college and high school level is you don't get to choose your players in high school. You have to work with what you got, right? So
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. So, I mean, it's almost like I would give higher marks to a high school football coach who's the winningest high school football coach than a college or professional, because for just that reason, because
sure.
you're taking whatever's come to you.
Right. And so there's a lot of value in that, and in developing the kids that walk through your doors, because again, who they are, that's what you get. And then the difference in college is, yes, you get to select them, but still that's a whole process in itself, and that starts with recruiting. So yeah, you're in a way you're recruiting great people as well, because if you go out there and
Sure.
hire or recruit a bunch of poor character, low character kids, it's going to showcase. It's going to show up. And so there's whole that or that process as well. So it comes back to people, and
So,
having
so
good people and high character, that matters.
this leads direct into the third point that you had, which was about leadership styles. Tell me about that.
So now being in, I don't know, 4 or 5 different programs, under leadership, head coaches, different. Um, it's interesting how leadership styles and how people run the program and process information throughout is unique, because just because one leadership style is different doesn't mean that they won't have success. And so I think it really comes down to who that person is and how they're wanting to lead and set the culture and whatnot. And so again, there's many ways to skin a cat, right? And that's the old adage there. And so, but just because you don't believe in that way doesn't mean it's wrong. You just might have a different philosophy, and your philosophy might be really good for where you're at and the kids there that are playing for you and the community. And so there's a lot that goes into it. But I feel you believe what you believe, and as long as you're willing to die on that hill and take a stand and say, hey, this is how we're going to do it. We're going to do it this way.
Now,
Um,
not all ways operate equally well either, right? I mean, you've seen enough coaches to know that what this one did and what that one did and what that one did are all not necessarily equally going to get you there too. So the coach needs to adjust to the people, and the coach needs to have his own way of doing it. And I mean, it's a very complex thing.
Yeah, and that was the point that I wrote down is I said that the culture that or the vision of how they see it being built should really be tethered or calibrated toward the type of kid that they have, and so you're going to have different programs. They're hey, tradition comes in, like, hey, this has historically been this way, and so there's a lot to take into consideration when you have all this. But you can't say, well, I was here and this is what we did. Well, it's not going to automatically work at this new place because you just could be totally different kids.
Right.
So again, there's little nuances along the way that you have to be able to navigate and then adjust accordingly.
Yeah, and I'm smiling because what you just described is essentially contingency theory. And so, and it's so what I just said academically, you just said in football, and it all translates to the organization
Right.
in a business context. So that's why I find this whole conversation fascinating. I mean, everything that you're saying is just transferable. Okay, tell me about your fourth point, which was emotional intelligence.
Yeah, this is something that I feel is probably the most apparent as I've witnessed really now going into year 9 of this journey is being able to have, and this has become a much more talked about subject, is your EI, your emotional intelligence, what that means. And I looked it up, and the definition or what they talk about is just being aware of, in control, and able to express one's emotions, right? So when we talk about emotional intelligence, then because of the environment and how really in a lot of situations the pressure, the chaos, call it controlled chaos, but the confusion. There's a lot of situations that will really test your emotions,
Mhm.
and so when you're in that moment, do you have what it takes to be able to control and harness and not just lose control? I think that is a huge point, that again, people handle it different ways. And so when there's 5 seconds left on the clock and you got one play to win, do we have ourselves under control? Like, do we know what we're going to call? And so it's hard to do until you like put yourself in that situation. And so that's why we try to replicate that for us as coaches, but then as players as well. So
Some
you're really worried about two things: yourself, and then are your players handling their emotions as well. So
some coaches seem to handle it better than others. I mean, you watch some games and you see the coach on the sideline turning purple, and you can obviously see the profanity if you can
yeah,
read lips or whatever. And then you see like Tony Dungy, who by all accounts, like when he got angry, he got quieter. And
sure,
that's when
yeah,
his players feared him when his voice went down, not up.
right.
So
I think it comes back to just the individual and your own temperament and just being who you are. And if you're not that guy, then don't be that guy. And it comes back to just being transparent and genuine. And if you're that from day one and you're consistent, the kids will recognize that. And if you're not, they'll see right through it, right?
yeah,
So it's
sure,
just
you
again,
can't fake being Tony Dungy, right?
right. And so
But
it goes back to that leadership style. If that's who you are, then be that, and be consistent with it. And don't be, this and that, and they really don't know what they're going to get. So, but yeah, it's the emotional intelligence. I feel is that next. I think that next level, and then also stuff is going to happen, right? Kids are going to experience hardship and adversity and different things, and you look at the world and what everything's going on. So you have to be able to uh, be compassionate and empathize with what's going on, right? I mean, everybody has been raised differently in different experiences, and so if you lack that, that you're missing an opportunity to connect with your kids on that next level. And so that's where it even goes deeper too. It's like
yeah,
not only handling yourself on the sideline, but also, hey, can you speak into this kid's life right now when he just lost his parent, or his brother was killed or something like that, right? So there's these traumatic experiences that go on, and so you have to be able to be there and be a just a stronghold for these kids. So
Yeah, what you just described, Sheen and Sheen describe as personalization, not
mm,
personalization, but personalization. And what I
mm,
mean by that is instead of just the professional role, I'm coach, you are player, you're actually getting to know the person and care about the person. They're not just a tight end or a linebacker or whatever it is. They are a whole person who happens to be a tight end or a linebacker,
right,
but you care about the whole person, and that
right,
goes a long way to getting where you're trying to get and building trust. So
absolutely.
that's very good. I mean, you said that, and I'm just giving the academic background of what you were
Sure,
just saying.
yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
number 5. I think this is my favorite. You said kids need to feel like, and you put it in all caps. Kids need to feel like they have a voice, a medium to be heard, and this creates ownership. Tell me about that.
So I think there's a this is kind of the where you have to be very clear in how you go about this, because it could, if you let it get too far, it could turn into um, it's not coming to me, but just where the kids or the inmates are running the prison, right? Just I know you don't like using those little things, but you want to be very clear and say this is earned, and so you have to tell the kids, okay, and in order to get to this point, excuse me, you have to earn it. So um, what I've seen being done, witnessed is, and even when I was a player at Charleston Southern, what we had a captain's council or a leadership council, and so those positions were earned or voted on by the organization, the program, and so you were appointed by your peers. And in that, we would meet with the head coach or discuss certain things that were going on. So, for instance, guy on the team messed up. Okay, how do we want to handle this? What should be his discipline? What should be his consequences for doing it? Okay,
Yep.
well, captain's council, we say this. Okay, head coach, we hear you. He said, we hear you, we understand. He considers it, and then ultimately he makes a decision. Or he say, you know what, I'm leaving this up to you all. Whatever you decide, I'm supporting, and so it's up to you guys. So um, when I say feel like, they just have to feel it. They have to believe that they have a voice in what's going on.
Yeah, you don't
Because
mean
again,
trickery.
yeah,
You're
like
trying to,
your
haha, feel
employees,
like, no, they
right?
really feel
Right,
it because it's real.
right. Your employees, again, why do you send out surveys? Why do you have these evaluations yearly, and that you're allowed to express yourself and give feedback to your upper level management? It's the same thing. The players have to feel like they have a voice and be represented in the program, and so they have to be given a medium to be heard. And what that does is it creates ownership. So again, the captains, right, the leaders that were appointed by their peers and the program in general, if they say, "Hey, this is what we're going to do," then the responsibility that comes back on them. So it does create a level of ownership, which I feel is imperative in any program in getting your program to the next level. So it's not just saying, all right, what do you guys want to do today? Or, all right, you guys, tell us what we're going to do. It's not that. It's giving them a proper medium to express how they feel, where they stand. It also shows that you're empowering them to make decisions, right, and to give them an opportunity to think and okay, hey, you're in my shoes. What would you do, right? And it could be their best friend, and so that's where it really opens up a great deal for maturity and
Right.
taking ownership of what they're going to do and standing behind their decision.
Yeah, and when you own the process, you make it happen naturally. You don't have to be guided or cajoled or have to be pushed on it, right? I remember my time in high school track where our coach did a really good job with that, with the seniors who were in charge, the team captains. And so when we came in as freshmen or sophomores going, oh, what a look, this is the way that we do it. And
Right.
it was the older students guiding the younger students
Yeah.
to, and that's a beautiful process where it's not all about you as the head coach, because otherwise you become a bottleneck, and the system can't run without you.
Yeah.
And so this was beautiful. I love how you dealt with empowerment and ownership here,
Yeah.
and that's why this was my favorite one. The
Yeah.
next one is communication. Tell me about communication.
Yeah, this has become my biggest, like, have been labeled a stickler, and that's okay. I like that because there's certain things that I'll budge on, but communication is top of the line. And for me, as a position coach, because I'm ultimately going to be held responsible for my players, I have to know, hey, what's going on? I need to know if you're going to be late or you're going to miss, or because I'm going to be held responsible. Hey, where's so and so? Okay,
Right.
well, if I don't have an answer, that's on me. And so it's gotta continue to uh, go and move down the line. And so it was when I was a teenager, I was not a good communicator. And even when I was in college, I was not a good communicator. And so because I made it a point of emphasis for myself, this has kind of become a huge staple for me. And so from the top down, it starts. So communication starts from the top, right? And if you have a poor communicator at the top, it's gonna trickle down, and it's gonna be very disorganized, and you got a recipe for disaster. But my point was that the coaches must model it, and so model what it means to be a good communicator, right? They need to see you communicating, you're right, using your phone. Hey, coach, so and so's not here doing this and that, and so that means like you're messaging out little things coming up. Hey, tomorrow we got this. Today we got this. So you're keeping them in the loop, and then it has to be emphasized to the kids as well, and then also the head coach and the coordinators need to emphasize it to the assistants. Hey, we thrive on communication. People, we need to be on the same page. We need to know what's going on. And so that was the biggest thing. It's got to be communicated what the expectations are of the program, the standards, right?
Yeah,
That
and so you're already merging into number 7, right? Which was the establishing clear guidelines. And,
yeah,
and so those two dovetail very nicely. So just keep processing
yeah.
it.
So, but again, there's some of the, I think, PJ Fleck at Minnesota, they actually have, and I know we've talked in your classes about language and just different um, uh, organizational jargon, right? The organizational language, right? I remember you had this, your kids had this whole different vocabulary of what different things mean, right, in your house, right?
Yes.
So, but and I've heard stories about this. They actually have at Minnesota, they have like a glossary of what different terms, and they like each player and staff member has to know what it means. And so, but even not even to that extreme, the point is that the language needs to be communicated. It needs to be the same. And so when your kids are using the same language you are as a coach, that's a good thing, right? You know that it's really hit home for them, and they're now being able to coach those young kids and use the same language. And so that continuity is huge. And again, it starts at the top. And so again, it's not only verbal, it's nonverbal. Hey, what are our expectations, right? Our body language, that's huge, especially for these younger generations. And hey, like, you're telling me a whole lot, and you're not even saying anything. And so yeah, so that's huge. And I think it needs to continue to be coached and developed and emphasized in our young people. So
More on the guideline side.
yeah, so and this is something I think, again, it will come as you know um, as I'm growing to more uh, or higher positions, is and again, it starts at the top, is understanding the type of community that you're working with, and then establishing program policies, guidelines, and boundaries as to what that looks like. And everybody when they have kids, it's important, and they want their kid to do well. And sometimes after a game, people are irrational, right? I mean, we talked about a lot in your class about being rational versus irrational, and when we're not in our right frame of mind,
Yep.
we're just not ourselves, right? And so we can do things and say things when we're irrational, and it is not the time to have a very candid or calm conversation where hey, we actually okay, we're getting somewhere. When
You
people,
probably remember
people
me
are
saying
irrational, one person are irrational, it's not good, right?
that.
Um, and I feel like at this level, been able to hear some behaviorists talk, and it's fascinating how they handle certain situations with just understanding behavior, right? And so the biggest thing from this is you know the community, your family's behind the program, whether it's they're directly they have a son or daughter in your program, or they're just a community supporter because they went there or something. I mean, these are your stakeholders for your program. And so, but they have to understand, hey, after a game, you know, please don't come up to talk to me about whether your son or daughter was in the game or wasn't in the game. We need 24 hours, and we can talk. After we watched the film, reflected, gathered our thoughts immediately after the game. Whether, excuse me, we won or lost. That's not the time to discuss. And so it's just understanding that, hey, this is how we're going to operate the program. There's a certain way to talk. Hey, if you want to come in and discuss this, okay, you can schedule a time, come in my office, and just that way you have things in order, and that it's not becoming again, we're eliminating that chaos and that controversy, which again can try to seep into a program or organization, and it'll eat it from its inside out.
Yeah, that's right. You probably remember me saying in class, it's irrational to have a rational conversation with an irrational person. You probably remember that line.
Yeah,
That's how I have said it for many years.
right.
And that's right. When I taught at a little classical Christian school before I was at Liberty, this is like 20 years back. I saw this phenomenon that you're saying. I called it mother henning, like
Mm,
mother hen, right?
yeah,
And so what it was when it's turn up the heat, turn up the pressure on my on the kids, turn up the pressure on the kids. Oh, but it's my child. Oh, no, you can't do that, and they would have to protect their darling
sure,
child who can never do anything wrong. But the other ones, those are the problems over there. You just turn the screws on them.
right.
So what you're saying, if I'm hearing you correctly, is if you have these policies in place, you can just refer back to those policies, and you don't have to then every new time that somebody wants to raise anything, you don't have to think through it. You can
Right.
just give us 24 hours. That's the
Yep,
policy. We'll talk
yep,
about it after. And it probably diffuses a lot time. And
sure.
then if you do have it, you have it at a time where you can handle it, not right
Yeah,
after the game where you
yeah.
have other things.
Yeah, in this is where there's been usually, or I would say this, over just being in football over the years, a lot has happened post game, right? In that hour to 2 hour frame, a lot could happen. And so there's been a lot of bad situations that have happened after a game that gotten people in bad situations and ended up losing their job, whether it be a spouse, a coach or a family member, whatever it may be. It's not a very, again, there's so much emotion and excitement, right? Whether it be positive or negative after a game. It's just like, hey, we just give us the day, give us 24 hours to, again, just remove ourselves from the situation, step back, gather our thoughts. Okay, now we can have a more uh, clear conversation about what's going on.
There's deep wisdom there. Okay, we got just a few minutes with the
Yep.
last one. The higher the position, the higher the level of organization and preparedness that's required on your part. Talk to that.
Yeah. So this has been something that really recently it's challenged me, right? And so new position that I'm in, it's there's other guys working with me, and so when we go out to practice every day, there has to be a level of organization
Mhm.
that you have to have in order to, okay, hey, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. And so as you climb, as you continue to move up the ranks, when you are sitting in that coordinator seat, you have to be organized because you have other assistants relying on you to be able to plan and be organized for their position group, right? So even though I'm not a coordinator right now, I'm still the head coach of my position group. And so in order to give them the best, I have to go out to the field every day and be organized.
Yeah.
And if you have assistants or other people helping you, well, they're also relying on you to tell them, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And so if you're unorganized and you're scrambling, trying to make a plan on the fly, it doesn't look good on your part. And
Yeah.
so, I put the verse Luke 12:48 because Jesus talked about this and it says, "To whom much is given, much is required, and from him to whom they entrusted much, they will demand more." So, and again, he's teaching a parable there, but this is a line that's referenced quite a bit, and very true. That as you continue to move up, when you're given more responsibility, more is going to be required of you. And to me, that organization level really has to be next level.
Yep.
And so you have to make sure you're organized, you're prepared. And so that might require more time doing this or doing that so that your people can then go and do their jobs, right? If they're relying on you and you're trying to delegate stuff, you have to have your I's dotted and T's crossed so that they can go do their job.
And I, as you were talking, I was thinking about multiple parallels, right? So, for example, I don't know if you thought that while you were a student that what I'm doing, that's easy. He's just doing that naturally. I spent hours preparing before each class. So if it looked like it was easy, it's because I had it all right in front and center in my thinking because I just spent time going back over the thing. And I've taught this class 10 times before the same stuff, but I still went back over it, right? So you have to put in your time. Another parallel, when students write, there's this phrase that I can't remember the author, but somebody said, like, if the author works hard, it's easy for the reader. And the opposite is true. If the student doesn't work hard, it's very hard on the reader, right? I'm sure I've taken longer to grade people's paper than it took them to write it sometimes. Right?
Yeah.
That's not a good paper. That's a very bad paper. You're not doing well. In fact, I was telling my colleague Maxwell Rollins the other day, I'm going to start timing how long it takes me to grade papers and factor that in somehow into a matrix of what the grade is, because I should be able to simply read it and go, yes, yes, yes. Oh, that's a great point. Yes, 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 yes. Without having to stop multiple times. So it's the same kind of stuff. All I'm doing is translating what you just said into my academic concept. And the same stuff can be translated into the organization as well. So, and that's really why I brought you on, because I was thinking, like, I know the things that you're going to say, you're going to be thinking through things, and what you're doing as a football coach will translate so nicely everywhere else. Okay.
Sure.
We're about at the point of being out of time.
Yeah.
Now we're shooting this in Zoom, and so some people will be listening to this in audio. But if you're watching this in video, you can see I'm actually wearing a football jersey, which Mike thought funny because this is my thing. Yeah, I know you're laughing at me even now. Okay, so it's the only football jersey I own, and I own this one for a particular reason. Do you know who this is?
It looks like Giants.
No, it's not Giants, and that's a really good guess because I am a Giants fan. I grew up in New Jersey, but you're close. It's not the Giants. It's a different Manning.
Is Archie? Oh, you're Colts. Okay, Colts.
Yeah,
okay.
Peyton Manning, his Colts jersey. Now, why Peyton Manning? I absolutely love Peyton Manning, but not because of his football prowess, but because of how he is. I mean, how he's conducted himself, generally speaking. He had this great quote I show in class every semester in Power and Influence. He says, "It takes 5 seconds to smile and be nice. It takes the same time to be a jerk. So smile and be nice." And so, I mean, how hard is that, right? Like, there's almost never a time that I can think of where you have to be a jerk.
Right.
You just don't have to. So be nice, and and the proverbs say an undeserved curse doesn't come to rest. Don't do that. I mean, just be nice. Okay, but here's why I also brought this up. I always come up with a quotation for contemplation at the end of every episode,
Yeah, I
and
really liked it. Yeah.
yeah, and one I actually want to get your thought about this. He also said this: the most valuable player is the one that makes the most players valuable.
Mm.
As a coach, what do you think of that?
Yeah, I think it's spot on. And the first position group that comes to mind is the offensive line, right? And so your five big guys up front, led by the center, right? Your guards and your tackles. These guys are instrumental in your success as an offense and really as an entire program. You're really only as good as your offensive line. If you can handle that up front, right? We call it the trenches. If they can handle themselves and perform at a high level, you will be successful as a football team. And so those guys, they hardly ever get the credit because they don't have stats, right? So they're back there in the shadows. And so a great quarterback, if he wants to be on the field and remain healthy, he's got to have a great offensive line. And so those five are always constantly making other guys look good because the receivers, the tight ends, the backs, when they're scoring, it's because the offensive line is doing their job up front. And so if you're willing to have that selfless attitude to try to, again, just do your role, do your job, and make others around you better, then those are the type of kids and players that you want to build your program around.
Yeah, hey, that's really interesting too. I would imagine Peyton was very nice to his front line, or any quarterback who wants to be successful is going to
Absolutely.
have a really good rapport with
Yeah.
that front line. Please don't let them hurt me.
Yeah. Yeah. And then also, it goes back to trust too. They had to trust him that he was going to put them in the right position to be successful too. And so that it just goes back to that unit and you talk about that synergy, right? He's only as good as them up front. And it's just football really presents a very unique, just dynamic that is unlike any other sport. And so that's, even though it might sound biased, it does come back to that, and that it is a special and it does prepare people for life. So.
Yep. All right. Hey, Mike, thank you so much for coming on the show. I very much appreciate it. And if when does your football season start? You're going to have a real season this year, like
Yes, yeah, and we did have one last year. It just got pushed a little bit, but it was actually the longest season I've ever been a part of. But yeah, we will start on time. We actually get cranked up here August 2nd, and so that's usually the kind of the preliminary start date for majority of a lot of programs is that beginning of August we're rocking and rolling. So get the remainder of the month here and enjoy the time while we got it, and we'll be ready for the 2021 season.
all right. Well, hey, thank you again. I hope Mike's advice here is useful to you and it helps you become the kind of leader that you would want to follow.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.